History was made recently in Nova Scotia government as new Director of Police Watchdog Agency was appointed. He is Alonzo Wright, the first African Nova Scotian to hold the position. Mr. Wright was a senior Crown counsel with many years of experience as an accomplished Crown Prosecutor, handling some of the province's most demanding, high-profile, and complex cases. Alonzo joins me now. Alonzo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Martin. Pleasure to be here.
Great pleasure to have you. I want to just sort of congratulate you first and foremost on your new position.
Thank you.
I know you started it in January, so it's just been a couple of weeks. How are things going?
Things are going great, Martin. It's an absolute honor to be in this role, to be appointed to this role after applying for the position and being the successful candidate. I am just thrilled to be a part of the organization and looking forward to serving the people of Nova Scotia and now New Brunswick as we move forward and answering their needs and fulfilling the justice's obligations as we look forward to serving these people.
Now, just to educate our viewers a little bit, what does SIRT mean?
Yeah, well, SIRT is the Serious Incident Response Team. And as you've pointed out, we are the kind of the police watchdogs, as you want to refer to them as. We investigate serious incidents that involve police, whether it be police causing bodily harm to somebody, breaking bones involved, stitches that may be involved, major accidents where police are involved in a chase, where there's death in police cells or harm that may be caused by incidents in police custody, domestic violence that involve police officers, things of that nature.
The layman's term, we would say, would you say that you are the police's police? Or was that a term that you're not comfortable with?
Yeah, that's a layman's terms for it, is that's kind of what we do. We take referrals from just about anybody in the community. The police themselves, including the police chief, have an obligation when there's been an incident that is serious, that involves members of their police force, that they have to contact us. Yeah. And when they contact us, we determine whether or not it fits our mandate to investigate. And if it fits our mandate, that being a serious incident involving police, then we would investigate that and determine whether or not criminal charges should be laid.
Awesome. And what will you see your role as the director being going forward as well?
Martin, that's a great question. My role as director is to ensure that my investigators, currently there are 4 investigators here in the province of Nova Scotia that I direct, that they are directed to go out and investigate serious incidents involving police. So it doesn't matter if it happens in Cape Breton or Yarmouth or Halifax or up in Amherst. Anywhere there's a police agency, and there's a police involving a serious incident, then my organization and I would direct my peace officers to go and investigate those.
Okay, great. And that sort of leads me to my next question as well. I was reading some stats here, and if you don't mind, I'll just go through them.
Yeah.
SIRT averages 25 investigations per year.
Correct.
They also, in 2020 to 2021, it opened up 45 files and conducted 24 investigations, which led to charges against 4 police officers. Now, looking at those stats and looking at those figures, it's sort of the question that comes to mind is what drives an investigation? What are the catalysts for in starting off an investigation?
So those stats are stats that are reported. There were other statistical information that may not get reported where we get calls of people just inquiring whether or not it fits our mandate. And they may not be reflected in the stats that you see here that you've presented today. But the stats that you have presented, what drives those stats are complaints. And those are complaints, like I've indicated earlier, whether it be from police chiefs who have an incident, or whether it be from the public, or members that are involved in the actual incident who report to us about the incident, and then we go and investigate. And again, if it fits our mandate, then we would launch that investigation.
Right.
And determine whether or not after that investigation is complete, whether or not that police officer is going to be charged or not charged.
Okay, so your powers, the powers that you have within your office, are they purely recommendationary powers, or do you have the power to prosecute?
Right. Martin, that's a great question again, because this is why I'm here. I want to educate our community, and that not just the Black community, but the entire community about the role of SIRT. What we do is we investigate serious incidents from police. And with that, we determine whether or not there's reasonable and probable grounds to lay a charge. And when we do that, and we find that there's reasonable and probable grounds to lay a charge, I lay the charge.
Right.
And that charge goes to the prosecution service to prosecute.
Right. Right.
So it's not a recommendation.
Okay.
It's not a suggestion. If there's reasonable probable grounds, then I lay a charge.
Right. So there is power behind the process to be able to start something going forwards.
There is a sense of responsibility that I have to the community, where there has been actions by police officers that are unacceptable and are serious. And with that comes power and obligation.
So what would you say to people that would say that you're an establishment man, right? You've been in the system for a while. So how do you represent the people within that system? How do we know that, there is serious action that will be taken going forward?
Well, let's look back on my background, where I came from. I came from public housing. I grew up in a place called Uniacke Square. I came from a single parent family, a very large single parent family, to say the least. And my mother was very strong in education. She was very strong on being truthful with your peers and who you had to answer to. I went on to university and ended up graduating from law school and becoming a prosecutor. And as a prosecutor, I took that role very serious. I represented the public in terms of whether or not a case would go ahead or not go ahead. And again, as you reported in your opening, high profile cases and very complex cases. I was not out to win. I was not out to lose. I was simply out to present the evidence to the court and let the court decide the guilt or innocence of an individual. And that's the same level of responsibility that I take to this role. Right. My goal is to have the public to have confidence in the SIRT program, that they can come to us and know that their concerns are going to be heard, for one, and if there's merit to their complaints, that it's going to be investigated. And if we find at SIRT there's reasonable and probable grounds to lay a charge, that a charge will be laid. And that officer will be sent to the prosecution service and prosecuted. However, the converse to that is that if there are no reasonable probable grounds to lay a charge, I will explain why there are no reasonable probable grounds to lay a charge to the public, and that officer will not be charged.
Right. So there is a two-way responsibility.
Absolutely.
You don't want people just laying charges, but you also want those charges that need to be laid as well.
Correct. And that's where the transparency piece comes in, Martin, that this organization of SIRT is going to be transparent as best we can without infringing upon people's privacy. But people will understand that there's a charge that's going to be laid, and it's going to go through the court system, and the judge will decide the guilt or innocence of an individual. If a charge is not laid, then I'll explain why that charge is not laid. People may not like it all the time, may not understand it, but they'll have an explanation as to why.
Excellent, excellent. So on a bit of a divergent, a different note, what's your philosophy? What would you say is your philosophy on life?
On life?
Yes.
Oh, live, love, and happiness, right?
Live, love, and happiness. I like that.
That's the philosophy on life we all should take. Life is very short, and we see it every day, whether it be a bomb going off in a foreign country, or somebody walking down the street in a bus having an accident, or not an accident. And as we see today on the news, life is short, and if we take every day like it's our last, and we go out and strive to do our best, and we're kind to other people, it comes back in spades. And so that's how I live my life.
What would you say makes crime happen in our society?
You know, Martin, people with more degrees behind their name mine have studied this over a long period of time. It could be socioeconomic, it could be mental illness, it could be an opportunity crime. There's several factors that go into what motivates somebody to commit crime, and I'm not an expert in that area. All I know is that if we continue to try to live our lives in the best way that we can and treat others with kindness, that'll eliminate a lot of crime that happens in our lives and around us. So if we live by that, or we're a shining example about that, then that will help to eliminate some of that crime that we see.
So what should the community expect? And this is a bit of a different type of question as well. What should the community expect from a police officer? And I appreciate you're not a police officer, so
yeah.
But as someone that is in going to be performing the role as a director of SIRT, what do you think a community should expect from police officers?
Well, Martin, again, another good question. Again, I'm not an expert in that field, but from an individual growing up in public housing, which historically has been over-policed on a number of occasions, it's a two-way street. It really is. Policing is a very tough job and is demanding. There are a lot of training and efforts that go into making a police officer. And the police officers that I know, that I have had the pleasure of dealing with, love their jobs and respect the community and want to help. They're the first ones to run into a traumatic situation, to put their lives on the line to protect the community. And with that comes some respect that they are owed. Thank you for your service. The two-way street to that is that now they're in a position of trust and power. So they have to act accordingly when it comes to representing the uniform and interacting with the public, interacting with the community. So if they're not being respectful to the community, then how do they expect the community to be respectful for them? And the other two-way street to that, if the community is not being respectful to the police, how do we expect the police to always maintain that level of professionalism if day in and day out they're being harassed or berated by members of the community? At some point, there may be a crack. And because they're under this magnitude of light and this microscope, their actions are held to a higher standard than members of the community because of the role that they're in. So my philosophy on policing is that it is a two-way street, and it's not just the police, it's the community as well. And this goes back to, again, my philosophy on life. If we work together, right? If we're working together and doing our best and putting our best foot forward, then some of these actions, and not all of them, but some of the actions that we have, interactions that we're having with the police, are going to be taken and looked at differently.
So, I mean, and that's really powerful what you said there in terms of, there is an expectation two ways. Obviously, because the police are in a position of power, there is a lot of, they have a lot of authority, and there's a lot more expectation from them. It's like being a manager in an office. I often said that, the manager has a lot more questions to answer than his subordinates, whereas it appears like they have a lot more power the other way around. So in terms of that, I guess that pressure on the police is expected and is part of the job as well. But as you said, there is a social responsibility. And I think does SIRT also come in to play in that social responsibility for the public as well, to the police?
Right. And thank you for bringing it back around to the SIRT and my role as the director. This is where the communication piece comes in, right? This is why I'm here at this event with you, to talk about the role at SIRT, to make that bridge, that connection with the community, that they have a voice and they have an advocate for them when it comes to wrongdoings by the police. Right. Or potential wrongdoings by the police. So if there's an act of, over-aggression in somewhere where there's serious incident that results, you have an avenue to go to have your concerns heard. So, and with that, comes a responsibility from the community that you actually have to say something. You can't remain silent and then say, oh, well, this just happens all the time. Well, if I didn't know about it as a director, how can I help?
So how do the community reach out to your department?
Right.
So obviously today we're fortunate to have you here, but if you know someone in the community, how do we reach out?
Well, we have a website.
Okay.
You check our website. You can send us an email on our website. You can pick up the phone and call us. Our numbers are answered all day. They're on the website, so check us out. And if there's something that you want to talk to me about or one of my members, happy to talk to you.
Awesome. And in relation to that, I'm going to talk about the youth in our community. You know, what advice will you give to the youth on interacting with the police? Because obviously in every society we see, there's sometimes that friction between the youth and the police. So how would you advise them to approach?
Well, my first message to the youth is this. Again, another great question, because, you know, I again, like I said, I grew up in public housing, and, you know, being a youth there was always challenging, because it seemed like we were restricted from going to certain places and doing certain things because of the color of our skin. Today, my message to the youth is education. And it's been a message that was instilled in me from a young age, as I've indicated earlier. You know, education. Let's start with getting these young people educated, where they have different lenses to look through, not only at the police, but at the world around them. And the more educated that the youth are, the more that they're understanding about what the roles of people are in the community, including the police officer. So with education and with understanding, if you're dealing with the police officer, you may say, I know exactly where they're coming from, because I've been able to talk to them. I'm able to converse with them on a level that is not based upon not understanding, but it's based upon education. So for youth that are involved with the police, you know, what would you want if somebody asked you a question, or somebody said something to you, or was just around? What would be your reaction if you had the uniform on? What would you want to take place?
Right.
So, and again, this goes with that two-way street kind of philosophy that I have. And I know it's hard. I know it's difficult, because I've been there. So, you know, start with, hey, maybe there's a question. Maybe there's good, not just bad.
Okay, all right. And when you mention education there, so just to clarify for our audience and for our viewers as well, when you say education, do you mean education through the education system, or do you mean education as an awareness to the youth on how to interact with police officers? That sounded like what you were talking about, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Thank you. I'll clarify that. I'm talking about both.
Okay.
Right? I'm talking about overall education, right? Overall world education. Understanding that the little cosmos that we grew up in here is only small. There's a larger national world kind of being going on, where issues are big, issues are huge. Understanding some of those issues helps to understand the interaction with people that are different than you, people that don't look like you, people in authority, right? People that have a different philosophy on life than you. And being able to be educated and understand that while I don't necessarily agree with your slant on the world, or your view on politics, I understand you have a right to that. And we can coexist on the same street with that understanding. So when I talk about education, yes, I'm talking about the systematic education of kids through the school system, which would help. You know, we're crossing over into boundaries now in our education system, where we're introducing Black studies, we're introducing Native studies, not just at the elementary level, but at the the post-secondary education level. That's where things are going. And when we talk about those issues, we're talking about interactions with persons in authority, including police officers, including the system and how it has failed people of color in the past.
Right.
So that's level of education that I'm talking about, is understanding that will help the youth grow to deal with police officers today. And it's a rather large issue or question that you've asked, and I wish I could answer it in a simple phrase, but it is that kind of level of understanding how deep it goes when we talk about educating our youth We talk about dealing with police officers. It's not just that. It's understanding the differences and understanding roles that people play in our society, understanding that police officers protect us, understanding that when we're in trouble or need help, we're calling 911 and asking for help. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a really big, diverse conversation that I actually want to take the opportunity maybe in the future to bring you back in to discuss this in more detail. So I think maybe we'll hold on to that and try and come back into that conversation as well.
Absolutely.
How the youth interact with the police and, vice versa as well.
Absolutely. Love to do that.
Absolutely. So on another note, fun facts. I want to understand, you are a basketball coach and you are a referee as well for the Canada Summer Games. So I have a question for you. When do you envisage organizing an international basketball competition here in Halifax?
Well, firstly, I coached at the Community Y a number of years ago, and I coached there for over 20 years.
Wow.
I've had the pleasure of coaching some great kids, including some kids that have gone on to the NBA.
Oh, wow.
So very thrilled about that. I started refereeing probably in 2012, I believe, and kind of excelled in that and understanding the game. And it's been great. Gone to Canada Games just recently and refereed there. So what a wonderful opportunity. I encourage our youth to get involved at all levels of not just basketball, at any sport that you want to be involved in and you love, to go and do that. As for an international game, I'd love to be a part of that. If you want to, Martin, if you want to set that in motion, I'm happy to sit on the committee or even chair it with the co-chair, and we can get it done.
Oh, I don't know about me. Oh, can I help in that? But we'll see. You never know. You never know. If you have enough people come back and say they want that, maybe something that we
Absolutely.
can make happen. Okay. In conclusion, and what will be your handing over notes to the next person that takes over from you?
Martin, that's a great last question. My legacy with this organization is real simple. It's to leave the blueprint of how to connect with the community, how to build a relationship with the police agencies in this province and other provinces, and how the open dialect and transparency works to put the trust in the organization that it deserves from the public.
Alonzo, thank you very much for your time today. Wishing you all the best, being the first Black director of SIRT. Wish you great success in the future and great success in the community as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Alonzo.
Thank you.
And that was Alonzo Wright, the newly appointed director of the Serious Incident Response Team in Nova Scotia. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell. Till we come your way again, I'm Martin Dynabear. Bye for now, and God bless.